Hi, everybody. You're now experiencing the Gretna Bill Show.
Woke up a little late and then I fell back to sleep, and I just couldn't get going this morning. And then I realized why it was. It's the tour is over. I have no reason to get up.
I thought it was because you're not from Durango, Colorado.
Which, before we forget, viewer Patrick Felton last week informed us that 2 out of 3 Americans were NICA alums. So that's pretty cool.
You'll have to explain to me what NICA is.
It is the
Like high school racing or
high school
something?
mountain bike league.
Cool.
That's all in Pennsylvania. The branch is called Pickle. And
That makes sense.
yeah, Interscholastic Cycling League and Pennsylvania, and NICA is just a great organization, and it produced, obviously, it's
Sepp
Kuss and
and
Nielsen Paulus.
yeah, both by the way are going to race Worlds at Imola next week.
Yeah, so you started off this morning talking about Worlds. So you made a good point. What do you think's going to happen? Like with guys coming out of the tour, are they going to be more ready for the tour, more ready for Worlds, or less ready for
One of
Worlds?
two things: guys are going to come out of the tour really good or really bad. There's no in between. And with it only being a week, it's going to be a lot like the guys that come out of the tour and go to Lombardy in a normal year. 15,000 feet of climbing. I think it's on a circuit. Well, the way the profile looks, it's a circuit. Boy, I'd be very surprised. I'm gonna go with my boy George Hincapie's pick and Wout van Aert, the most loved and hated rider at the same time in the world right now. Because there's no way a strong Belgian boy can be clean, quote unquote, according to all the geniuses online.
Yeah.
And I doubt. My thoughts on that.
Well,
anyways,
I'm gonna go with Sagan, just because I've
he
been
looked
pulling
good
for him.
yesterday. He's
He
coming.
did. That's right.
He was coming. He's definitely getting better. He got better as the tour went on. That's a really good strong because Peter wants to win Worlds and then go party. Right? He wants to go party. I can't do it as good. I mean, I just he's gonna go party.
He wants to make party.
He wants to make party.
So powerdot.com. All right.
You have
So
a vested interest in that, by the way. Or no, you don't have a vested interest.
WA Gentile Enterprises,
Yeah.
not yet. Just
I am not vested in GUERCIOTTINorthamerica.com, but would like to be.
you will be. Well, we have a couple of frames down there. Yeah, we got to work on.
Next Tuesday or last Tuesday, Le Tour de Pin to Villard de Lans. I'm sure I got that wrong.
Stage 16.
It was hilly. This is it's a good stage. They had a breakaway with the Bora guys in there, or Leonard Camno went away and won the stage. With Carapaz started showing himself for Ilios. He was caught there towards the end, and then Reichenbach got the third for FDJ. Probably about their best finish of the tour.
I think you're right.
But Sam's pretty much locked down green. I think that day. It was so long ago, I can't remember what happened. Truth be told. But Taddy started showing himself being really strong at the end, I believe. And, the mountain jersey was all tied up. And that was when Egan was done. That was, I think
you're right.
When Egan was pretty much done. I don't think he had abandoned yet, but he was pretty much done. And there were no positive COVID results at all out of 1,600 tests, which, considering that they have, 14,000 yesterday, according to Phil, or something on the coverage. It's like, I don't know how you come up with 14,000 positive tests in France and then come up with no positives in the tour, but I'm glad they did. So, it was pretty.
Yeah, it was a big success from
very,
that
very
standpoint.
much so. When you look at the numbers, it was very good, to say the least.
I had a note for some reason in stage 16 that I liked Guerin Martin, and I think it's because we talked about that. He came back from a bunch of things. And was really
he kept fighting back.
And he ended up overall on the tour like almost top 10.
Yeah. No, he had a solid race. I mean,
I like him because he's a philosopher, supposedly. But hell, everybody in Europe gets a
That's
doctorate.
true. That's
You're
true.
a doctor for... All right. Stage 17.
Grenoble to Maribel Col de la Loze.
We're firmly planted in the Alps at this point.
Yes, we are. It's a good stage. This is a real good stage. This was one that pretty much said how it was going to go.
24% incline at places.
On the Madeline or at the end?
At the end.
At the end, yeah. That Maribel was ugly. It was
So,
just nasty ugly.
Is that 24%? Like Pinch Road is about 20%, right?
Oh, last time I went up and
22?
checked it, I think it's somewhere in the low 20s.
Yeah. So that would be the example out there, folks. If you're coming up Pinch Road.
Coming up the backside of Pitch from Lancaster County, just plain ugly. Carapaz had a great effort, man. He was off on his own for a long time. They called him in the last couple K on the Maribel. It was a elite
La
group.
Motorota.
And then Miguel Angel Lopez, which I didn't realize he was 5'4" and 130 pounds. That guy takes a good shit and he loses 10 pounds.
Did we anticipate? Did we call him out as being in stage one, the guy that slid into the stop sign? Remember, I asked you that.
I think he did, but I can't remember.
Yeah,
anymore.
it was him, dude.
It just seems like it was 3 weeks ago.
So here we had Lopez, Roglic, Pogačar.
Yeah, and then Sepp in fourth, who pretty much brought, he kind of put a hurting on Taddy that day. And then Richie in fifth, harbinger of things to come. Richie Port really starting to show himself.
Yeah, good point. And then that Rod Ellingsworth, or the team director for Bahrain, those guys did a lot of work this time. Tried to push Land Up in there, and they did it with Sonny Cabrelli. He took a lot of holes out front.
It was a really good stage, to say the least. I mean, Bennett pretty much sewed up green that day. I think Sagan pretty much packed it in on 17 as far as legitimately going after the green. So.
I think you're right. So before we finish stage 17, yeah, in my mind, I was, not questioning Brailsford anymore about his Carapaz pick. And, that was the stage that Kuss jumped and followed by Lopez. But then he was supposedly told by Roglic to go ahead and take a shot at it.
Yeah, I think they set it up for him that day. I think that was Sepp's but he said afterwards that Lopez was just going too strong. I mean, Lopez is a pure climber, so he's got that acceleration even on those steep pitches. And it showed.
There were some people that say that was a little bit of a crack in Jumbo's armor, because they thought that that Roglic should have stayed behind Sepp and tried to separate from Pogačar.
Well, he did. But yeah, I mean, again, it's so easy to second guess these guys at that level, at that point. But again, I think you started seeing already, that day. We talked about it last week. And again, he was my pick to win this thing. Primoz was my pick, and I'm obviously staying with it, even though everything that happened. But the guy. He did everything he could.
Right. No, and we'll touch on that later, as you would say. But Benoit Cosnefroy finally out of the polka dot jersey. Now, so were you aware that the last couple of years, all the polka dots are not colored red?
I was unaware of that.
There's a blue in the front and a blue in the back. And, no one even knows now. That was general questions coming in, and no one could answer that question. So if any of you guys out there know why that is so, let us know. It popped up about 2 years ago.
Interesting.
So the big story then was not during the stage necessarily when it went Lopez, Roglic, and Pogačar, but it was Zeman was ejected and fined, and he is the director of Jumbo-Visma.
I thought that was a little closer to the time trial on Saturday. I thought that was Friday.
It was after stage 17. So by stage 18, he was out as sport director. And I think it was at that point that he made an official statement that he's not too worried about, Roglic's strategy at that point in time. But anyway.
He should have been. Stage 18.
Yeah.
Maribel de La Roche-Siforon. It was a 168K, ugly profile up and down, bunch of one categories, Oars category there. Towards the end, it was an all-day break, of course. Three men were up the road. Our Hershey board looked really good. Mark Hershey looked really good till he laid it over in a corner. And then Kwiatkowski and Carapaz went off on an Ilios training ride and then ended up crossing the line together, which looked super cool. And they gave the win to Mikel from Poland, and Wout brought the field home in third. And that again started all the genius wild haters that, how can the guy climb like he climbs and then sprint like he sprints? But, third place now is wide open. And, obviously by this time, first and second was pretty much sewed up for the two guys at the top. Third place was wide open. You had Lopez, Richie, Landa, all came down to the time trial.
To your point earlier in the show, when we talked about why these guys are using tubulars, because you said you can run them in a flat.
Yep.
And that turned out to be the deciding factor to get Richie Port on the podium, as it turns out, because that was the gravel road section at the top of the climb.
Yep.
And he pulled a flat, and he kept riding and riding and riding till the team car could get him a wheel.
And Jumbo Visma had two guys popped. I think actually Wout was one of them, and they just drove it like maniacs to get back to the front to help the leader. But I think Hershey would have won that stage. It's tough. I mean, Kierkowski can sprint. He's coming out of this tour really well. He'd certainly be a guy we can talk about for next week.
Yep.
Just another really, really hard day, to say the least. And as a two-man battle then for Polka Dot, it came down between Carapaz. It's going to come down between Carapaz and the kid. And then,
Pogacar.
Yeah. And then the next day,
Stage 19.
Stage 19, 160K from Borgre Bessie. I don't know, to Camp, we'll just say Campanoga. But that was, this was like a textbook classic day. I mean, you had 6-7 guys go away late. Soren Craig Anderson gets a second win for Sunweb, who had a great tour. Just a phenomenal tour for those guys. Sunweb, young team. They kept attacking the whole time. It was really, it was awesome to see these guys have the effort and do what they've done with Luca Mesger in second. Mesgic in second with Mitchelton Scott. Jesper Stuyven in third, GVA in fourth, and Olivier. We've been saying his name wrong for years.
Yeah.
I thought it was Oliver. Nielsen coming to fifth. That's a classic lineup if you ever saw one.
Greg Van Avermaet had a pretty good tour, actually.
No, he's another guy for next week for sure.
Yeah,
without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, he can climb that stuff. He can get over that punchy stuff. But it was a classic sky break, 20K out. They drove it. It's just was incredible. I mean,
so at the end of the stage, they said that kilos to watts for Pogacar was 6.3 at the beginning of the race. And then after this stage, they say he was at 6.7 when they looked at his output.
21 years old. Happy birthday today.
I don't think nobody beats that. I mean, no. I don't know if anybody.
That's what they talked about yesterday on some of the sites, that his numbers put him into another realm. And I believe a lot of it's age. I believe a lot of it's just the training and age and just his mindset and all that. We got to touch on Remy Cavagnier. Thank you. He was off at the beginning for about 2.5 hours, and he covered 50 plus miles in 2.5 hours. He's just hauling ass by himself. The dude is just, he's a French TT champion, but man, he's got a turn of speed. It's just incredible. Just that steady 30 mile an hour tempo for hours. You can't argue what the Koenig Quick Step's done. They got some horses for the front if they need them. They can put guys in the front that can keep it at a steady 50K.
Yeah.
That's just impressive. Super impressive. I mean, for the people that don't ride or just ride occasionally, keeping a 20 mile an hour pace is no joke. Keeping a 30 mile an hour pace is only these guys do that.
So stage 20, I decided I'm going to watch the rerun. I decided to hook up with Wilson for a road ride, and he needed some lights. So we talked about some different lighting configurations for him. And at any rate, I didn't want to hear anything about the stage, but I knew something was happening. I could just, my spidey senses were tingling.
Probably wasn't your phone vibrating in your pocket with my 30 messages, was it? That might
have
had something to do with it.
Yeah. So the first one was, or what I would say the most poignant text that John sent me was, damn, ... damn.
I use a lot of dots.
And when I saw that, I was like, damn.
Exactly.
I'm like, holy shit, what just happened? So, yeah, what happened,
This
bro?
was L'Oreille to Les Ponts de Bellefields. I don't know, whatever. You would think by now we'd have these pronunciations down. 10 years from now, we will. Real quick, I want to touch on team race. Movistar wins it for the 385th time in the history of the Tour. I swear they come there just to win that team prize. But the 20th stage might go down in history as probably one of the top 5 stages in Tour history. It's just I say incredible and unbelievable and awesome and that stuff a lot. But this was just one of those days that if you didn't watch it live or didn't see it, you got to go back and watch it. Or better, I mean, you just missed it. If you missed it, you're never going to appreciate what happened that day. The
second youngest winner was Pogačar, and his birthday is tomorrow. He turns 22 today. Turns 22, and the last person that won it that young was that Henry Corneau. In 1904, he was 20 years old.
Yeah,
doesn't really count.
It's pre-war stuff. But anyways, Taddy won it with Tommy D in second, Richie in third. Incredible ride by Richie Porte. I mean, 35 years old.
Yeah.
Lays it down, solidifies his place on the box. Wout came in a strong fourth with Primoz in fifth. Primoz just never looked good from the get-go. I mean, he just looked uncomfortable. The bike change was a disaster. I don't know what this team was thinking. It was just... I'm never going to second guess these guys per se because they do it for a living and they're the best in the world. But my God, it was painful to watch. You know, the helmet on crooked. He looked like Curly.
The helmet was disturbing.
He looked like Curly from the Three Stooges out there, right?
The helmet was slightly crooked and back
and sitting way up on his head. And it was just,
geez.
And Taddy just got on down to business, man. Just incredible. Just
an
unbelievable.
They had them on
no mistakes.
They had them on split screen, right? And you could see him, even though obviously, Roglic was to the rear because the yellow goes off last. So you look at Taddy and then look at Primoz.
No comparison.
Back and forth. And you kept saying to yourself, or at least I kept saying, was Roglic, grab another gear. Please, you're killing me.
Yeah, it was
grab
incredible.
One more gear, dude, or you're not going to.
It was, and the guy's one of the strongest, the top 5 strongest riders in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. He just fell apart. I think the pressure got to him the way it looked, maybe. Just my opinion. Looked like the pressure got to him, and Taddy had no pressure. And I answered that, another one of the armchair geniuses online was saying about how, there's this kid's too good to be true, yada, yada, yada. It's like, look, he's 21 years old. He didn't come here thinking he was going to necessarily win the Tour. I think that team management has their shit together. They have one of the best directors in the game in Alan Piper. I'm going to tell an Alan Piper story here in a bit, but Piper is a genius. This has been beat to death on the other podcasts and stuff, but it's the truth. The guy is incredible. And I've been following Alan Piper for 30 plus years. And guy beat cancer, dude, super. I mean, they leave no stone left unturned, very much like Sky and Ilios was in their prime. And because I don't think they're in their prime anymore. They got schooled this tour by both Jumbo and to a lesser degree to UAE. And UAE rode a smart race. They did exactly everything they needed to do to keep that kid close. And it's come to the attention yesterday that they actually enjoyed losing that time in the crosswinds with the flat and stuff because it took all the limelight off them and they could kind of just surf the wheels and sit.
Solid point.
Yeah.
And then they started the tour off with the yellow jersey and ended it. I mean, it's a sweet effort by UAE.
Incredible. They won 5 stages, I think. They ended up with the mountain jersey, the yellow jersey, obviously, and the young riders jersey. And, I think if Taddy wanted to go after the green jersey this tour, he might have been able to get that too. It was it was a dominant performance, incredible performance. And, the sky's the limit for this kid at 22. I mean, it's a young man's game now for sure.
Well, kind of the way they said that about Bernal too, though. So we'll see.
I think it's a little bit different.
I think you're right.
Bernal could be back next year and he's still, 24.
Yeah. So, it's speaking of Bernal and even Quintana, I think those guys all had their chances to climb with Pogačar, and yet he ran them off. Like he ran off Bernal that one day. He broke him.
Yeah.
So I just think his numbers were always better all day long, and the only reason why Roglic kind of stayed in there as long as he did because he had the team up there with him.
Nah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the team definitely made a difference. They had the jersey, so they had to be at the front. It's part of their job. But I don't, you go back to the first show, when we did our predictions, I said, because I watched it again last night just to make sure where I was in all this. I said, Taddy, don't be too surprised if this kid's not on the box. I didn't pick him as a winner because I just thought his age and everything would factor in. But, neither one of us are surprised. We talked about that this week.
His numbers are just off the chart, as I've been mentioning.
So his recovery is
basically good. Pogačar won the race. Roglic didn't lose it. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but it's going to be tough for this guy, even at 30 years old and everything he's been through with being, being a ski. Coming from an alpine ski or Nordic ski.
You think that was his only chance?
Nah, I think he's got one more in him. I think next year every year we say this year is going to be really good.
Well, and obviously,
every year,
obviously, you're 35 years old, Richie Porte. They're looking at him to not just be.
He's
just going to. Yeah, he's going to work.
He's cashing check. He knows what he's doing. He's not. He had a great ride, but I honestly don't see Richie
being a team captain at Ineos.
There's too much youth there. I mean, they're going to, Brailsford will open the checkbook up and maybe bring in another guy or two in the next few weeks. I think they know what they got to do. They know what happened here. I believe there was probably a lot of long faces at the Ilios bus last night. I mean, they certainly, they don't like to lose this. Another thing to touch on is this was Colnago's first tour win as a bicycle manufacturer.
With Campy.
Well, Campy, yeah, but I mean, Colnago, the bicycle. And then it was pretty cool to see Colnago and Bianchi fighting it out. And then you throw Pinarello in the mix.
Yeah.
And then, these classic Italian brands and obviously Guerciotti, a classic Italian brand.
Yeah. So we can take a moment to thank our sponsors for presentation today and for our other 2 episodes. Or did we do 3
episodes?
Jeez.
This is number 4.
So LupineNorthAmerica.com. That's Lupine Lighting Systems. And again, it's that season, folks. So
it's getting dark. You got to be seen.
Guerciotti Bicycles of Milan, Italy, and Deluxx Bikes, Lebanon, and Josh Zering Studios, the suburbs of Mount Gretna.
Beautiful downtown, sprawling timber hills.
Yes.
Near the lake. Lakefront property almost.
So I had a couple of notes here. Workload over the entire tour was jumbo. They did
to be expected.
They did 23%. And who would be your second guess?
The Koenig Quick Step.
They were third. Bora at 19%.
Well, that's only because Sagan
right
was desperately trying to keep that green jersey. That makes sense.
146 riders ended, right? Mm-hmm. So that means 30 dropped at some point. You don't think that Zeman affected the final outcome when he got tossed from the tour?
No, I don't think so. I mean, these guys are pros. They know what to do. I mean, I'm not saying it helped, but I don't think it hurt, and again, we can talk for hours on how effed up the UCI is. I mean, this is the shit we're worried about. There's no motors in these bikes at this level. And then for this clown to go over there and try to tear apart, a $15,000 race bike just makes no sense at all. This is just the riders do need to get together as a group and figure out how to come together as a group. They showed the solidarity yesterday. They could do this if they would get organized for real and, just put a stop to these shenanigans with the UCI. I mean, the UCI's job should be to put on top quality races, to be that sanctioning body for the races and pretty much walk away and let the people that know what they're doing do it. I mean, every time I just hear this huge sucking sound coming out of Switzerland. It's somebody's wallet getting opened up and money getting pulled out of it. It's just pathetic.
Interesting to note that the 3 countries in the Middle East that signed that Arab peace accord just recently with us will also have tour teams. And of course, that's Israel, Bahrain,
and the UAE.
United
they all obviously had
Arab Emirates.
Yeah, one of them obviously had an incredible tour, but the other 2 had very good tours. I mean,
GVA.
Yeah,
dude, he was.
Well, they all rode good. They all rode well, to say the least.
But Char,
You know, they were really. Now you're talking CCC. They're from, you know.
Right.
Team.
Okay, missed that
You
one.
know.
Thanks
But
for
you were
straightening me.
close, though.
I'm like Liggett.
I mean, yeah.
Dude,
well,
I'm older
I gotta
than
keep
you.
on you.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts going into next week? And
Well,
then
we got to go to the last stage. We didn't even talk about stage 21 yesterday on the Shams.
Well, it's yeah.
I mean, you know, just real quick. I mean, you know, the overall yesterday was Bennett, Mads Pedersen, world champion, sprinting up there to second. Which again, here's another guy coming, I think, out of the tour in good form.
Yeah.
Who's to say he doesn't do a Sagan and keep that rainbow jersey? And then Peter Sagan slipped up there against the best sprinters that are left, without a doubt. Third, obviously, he's getting stronger. So again, you know, these guys are not going to, you know, these guys aren't laying in a hotel room right now with bloated bellies, you know, and wondering what the next move is. These guys are going to go out and ride today. And, you know, wherever they may be in the world, they are definitely getting, you know, the ones, and I checked last night, the preliminary roster for Worlds, there's a lot of tour guys going to Worlds. So it's going to be very interesting to see, you know, if you're on the up or if you're on the down. And you know,
I'm picking Sagan again.
yeah, I mean, that's a solid pick. I mean, the three Americans did really good. I mean, Sepp Kuss, 15th at 42 seconds or at 4 minutes 20, something like that. I can't read my scribbling, but it doesn't matter. Still 15th. If he was allowed to run for himself easily, would have been a top 10 guy for sure. Nielsen Powell in his first tour and you know, finished up a respectable 56th. And the kid has got a nose for breakaways. I mean, he's going to win some. Yeah. He's going to win a lot of races. And TJ Solid, the old guard per se, all top 100, in the top 100, and just you really had a nice, uneventful, quiet, strong, great tour.
Kuss really was 15th or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, Kuss was 15th. Movistar won the team prize. Taddy won everything that wasn't nailed down.
Who got the Lantern Rouge?
I'm glad you asked that, Billy. The Lantern Rouge was Roger Kluge of Lotto Sedan. That was the little man's lead out guy. And
who would you think had the most time in the breakaway of any rider in the Tour de France 2020 this year?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with maybe Mark Hirschi.
He was second.
Carapaz. Well, it's
the Ecuadorian.
Now Mark Hirschi also won the most combative prize for the overall, the red number, which was, I think, very well deserved.
Certainly.
You know, real quick, I want to tell my Alan Piper story. I want to take a couple seconds here. Years and years ago, you used to have the great race down in Philadelphia Course States. You know, U.S. National Championship.
Oh, he's like to go down there and watch
everyone,
that.
You know, the Euro teams would send a token team over. You know, a handful of Euro teams would always come over every year. And back in early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, there was a team called Tulip out of Belgian Dutch computer team, Tulip Computers. And Alan Piper was on that team. And I had been following Piper. I think he had a something in Velo News or something, and there was no online then, so it was all print. He had a diary or whatever that they do every month. And anyways, you know, you really couldn't walk around with it. You know, Philly is what Philly is. It was kind of a little weird. They had the snow fence up and stuff. So, you know me, I'm running around like a maniac with my book and stuff. And it's like my only chance in the world to ever meet Alan Piper and stuff. So I see him cruise back to get his feed and stuff before the start of the race, before they go down to the start. And I jump the snow fence and go running over. And it's like, you know, I see some cop making a beeline to me, but not before I get the Piper. And the dude was super cool. It's like, you know, we chatted for 10 seconds and he signed my book and stuff. I wished him luck. And I literally felt like a little 5-year-old meeting a movie star or something. It was so cool. You know, I might have peed myself a little bit. It was an interesting, it was almost like the time I met Lebanon Levi at Walmart. You'll have to ask the wife about that sometime.
Lebanon Levi.
Yeah. My voice pitched a little high when I saw him. I was all excited. You know, I was a little nervous, but it was cool.
And again, John, what's your cup today?
My cup is the porch and pantry.
As well as mine.
And that is situated in beautiful downtown Gretna, Mount Gretna.
It is. You know, I'm a little bit off today, as you can see, but I'm kind of this time when the tour ends, I'm kind of. So, like, cheer me up, John. What have we got to look forward to now as I get over this post?
Well, we got the Worlds coming this week.
Tour depression.
World TT, I think, is Thursday, and then the World Road Races are Saturday, Sunday in Imola, Italy. I think they incorporate the F1 course or something. I believe. I haven't looked at the course yet, but
that sounds exciting.
But it's in Italy, so the Tifosi, all 30 of them that are allowed to attend will be there waving their blue flags. The Tifosi Azzurri, or whatever, however they say that. But then you got the Giro starts the following week, and the Giro and the Vuelta overlap. So they won't be doing this. Well, they don't have any choice, so they don't want to race into December. It's just going to be a really intense 2 months of racing from here on out. Just crazy stuff every weekend, stuff every week. There's races in Belgium today. There's a it's not even a semi-classic, but there's stuff starting up nonstop. The classics, Ghent-Wevelgem, I think, is in a week and a half or something like that. And the Belgian stuff starts, so, Flanders and Roubaix, and it's going to be really good.
So how are you going to be viewing those races for the most part?
No, I think I may pony up for the NBC deal, the gold ticket or whatever. I mean, I hate to pay for it, but we don't really have a choice. I mean, the streaming stuff is cycling fans and Tiz and
not quite.
Yeah, it's tough. It's good coverage. I mean, I'm going to look into the GCN too, not to be confused with GBN.
Speaking of which, the Gretna Bill Network. We're still waiting for you fans to send us in some of your favorite videos, your riding videos or pics of your bikes.
We know you're riding. We know they're out riding.
So please get those in here. Did we have any questions this final week till we move on to our next project?
No questions.
All right.
I guess everybody's happy with what they're seeing.
Do you think, I thought this year we started off our preview show, we started talking about the history and the beauty of the landscape in the countryside of France. And I thought this year they kind of played that theme a little bit more, amplified it, and it was even more beautiful than I can remember it. Would you agree with that?
I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't have any problems with the tour being ran in late August into September from here on out. I weather was on point. They didn't really, but again, we can't control the weather, but the weather was awesome pretty much every day. I think the riders were pretty happy with that. But the scenery is incredible. I mean, it is such a beautiful country. I mean, so much history there. I mean, we look around in our area and, like a church that was built in the early 1800s and in the early 19th century is like a big deal. And then you go by a church that the Crusades went by. It's been there for, 1,300 years. And it's just absolutely, I always say that there's people living out in the country in France, like they lived exactly before the revolution. Before Napoleon, before all that. And I, you never see any service stations. I mean, I don't know where these people get their gas, but they must drive thousands of kilometers
good
for
point.
it. There's never any, it just doesn't, it looks like you're literally riding through these towns that haven't changed. I expect a Panzer to be around the corner at any town in northern France. Like there's, the local German, depot of the I expect them to come around and there'll be tanks and shit there from World War II. It's just an incredible country.
Do you think awesome. Do you think that the average American has maybe turned to the Tour de France for some sports viewing this year more than in the past, or maybe just stage 20 maybe has sparked some interest in people that are non-traditionally watching cycling events?
Dude, I can tell you right now, I'm hearing stuff from some people that have never watched a tour before and have watched it this year because they're at home working, which is cool. And they watched a tour every morning on the NBC coverage, and they've fell in love with it. They just think this is awesome. They're going back and watching old tours, and they're, I'm getting questions from these people about this stuff. So, I mean, do we see, a renaissance in people watching this stuff and that? Yeah, I think we will. I mean, especially if the workload shifts to home, newsflash to the bosses out there. Not everybody's busting their ass when they're working at home. They might have the big screen on behind a computer screen that you can't see.
They're multitasking.
Yeah, exactly. And, no, but this year's race was a good race. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go as far as to say it was one of the greatest tours ever, but it was a good race. And it's,
well, here's the thing. Each tour offers
each tour's better than the last.
Yeah.
And with the drama of this year with Bernal kind of just falling apart. And I think COVID's got to have a little bit to do with all this, that the fact that who could train where and who could do what coming out of this, going into this. I mean, it's got to factor in. I mean, there's nothing wrong with sitting on the train, or there's nothing wrong with staring at a screen for 7 hours, your numbers, but it's tough to beat riding outside.
People always ask me what my favorite race was that I ever did. And I always say the next one.
Well,
So, but that's what I feel about the Tour. What's your favorite Tour de France? The next one.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, when we get to be our age, you hope to get to see the next one. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Truth.
let's just be honest there. But I think the Giro is going to be really good. The Giro is not coming in with as many favorites as this race maybe possibly had on paper. So it could be, I mean,
The Giro will have 18 professional World Tour teams, correct?
it'll have all the same World Tour teams that were at the Tour, plus the 3 or 4 wild cards with her this year are all Italian continental teams, and they animate the race big times in Italy. It'll be just like Kofid. And getting back to Tour real quick while I'm thinking of it, you know, the continental teams in the Tour this year, they didn't get any results, but you can't, you know, Total Direct Energy. I mean, according, you know, the best beard. That dude's beard was good.
Yeah,
Soup,
yeah.
Soup. That's. I mean, I like Phil said yesterday or the day before. I think it is a fake beard. I think they put it on every morning for him in makeup. But nah, killer beard. I mean, he looks sort of like King Leonidas. I was waiting for him to have the airbrush 6-pack. But no, all joking aside, you know, Total was very animate. They had guys off the front. Kofidis was there every day or thereabouts. And B&B Vitel, B&B Hotel Vitel was there. I mean, Pierre Rolland had a bit of a renaissance. He was driving yesterday late to bring it back for Brian for their 4th place sprinter.
A shout out to Valverde, ended up 13th. Come on.
Yeah, 40 years old. And they're talking that he's racing another 2 years, 3 years. It's incredible.
What about his chances at Worlds?
I don't think he's very good. Very good.
Right.
I mean, the dude's motivated beyond belief. You'd love to get that rainbow jersey back on his back. And I think he's probably going to the Vuelta. I didn't look at rosters, but I'd be surprised if they don't send. But then another guy from Movistar we got to talk about real quick is Enric Mas with a top 5, I think. And Mas just rode a really smart.
He's a young rider.
Very young rider. I mean, you know, made the move from Deconic over to his country's home team and was just incredible. You know, he had a really good ride again, and Movistar is, you know, they're looking to win something big soon, I believe. You know, I think they'll be battling it out up there at the Vuelta. That's obviously the race they want to win with being a Spanish team. But you know, getting back to the Giro real quick, it's going to be good, and the weather could really factor into, you know, mid-late fall in Italy.
Any of these top 10 or 15 finishers going to be in the Giro that you know of? From the Tour de France?
Not that I know of. I don't think any of those guys are going to the Giro.
What about Dumoulin?
If anything, they send him to the Vuelta.
And what about
I think Jumbo
Sagan?
has a Jumbo probably sends a pretty young team to the.
What about Sagan?
Yeah, he's definitely doing the Giro because he's contracted to do it. Big money. That's the word on the street. So he's coming in good form. So I expect to see him competing for a jersey there. You know, one of their 35 different jerseys they hand out every day. They have a jersey who gets to the Porta John quickest in the morning. They have a jersey, the guy that eats the most pasta every night. Yeah, they love giving jerseys out. I don't know how they'll do that this year with the COVID, you know, regulations. You know, it'll be interesting. The brain never stops working. It's always scary.
Did you hear?
And now I'm cramping up. My leg's cramping.
Did you hear those guys on ad free on Global Sport? It was
The NBC.
NBC. They were talking about fans that wrote in jerseys that they think they should be awarding. There were some pretty ridiculous.
Well, why not? If the UCI can get a buck out of them, they'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, plus also the organizers, you know, they don't, you know, they'll take every dollar. You know, if there's a bread manufacturer that wants to give them $100, 100 francs, they'll take it. 100 euros. I'm sorry. I forgot that we're still in the euros over there for the time being.
For the time being,
you know,
even though the fines are levied in francs.
Well, no, Swiss francs.
Swiss francs.
Swiss francs. That's completely different.
All right.
I thought of something really good to say right there, but I definitely will probably offend people if I say it, so I'm not going to. Josh is back there wishing that I say it.
All right, man. John, thanks a lot. This was great.
Thank you, Billy.
We're gonna keep doing
awesome. this. It was definitely good Monday mornings coming out here and doing this. I want to thank Josh, man behind the camera, did a great job. You know, had the coffee ready after I told him to.
Yeah.
It was awesome, Billy. It was cool at night sitting down and doing my research and
same here, man.
Writing different things down and kind of actually paying attention a little bit more to some different things.
And in that respect, we learned more. I learned a lot more because now I'm thinking, all right, what's the director going to do now? Or what's this rider going to do now? What should he be doing? So it made me focus a little bit more.
Well, there's a lot.
There's a
so
lot
much
going
that goes
on.
into this.
There's so much going on all the time.
I learned a lot of Spanish the last 3 weeks watching Johan Brunel's podcast or listening to Johan Brunel's. I could only understood about three, every other fifth word. But there's just a lot of insight there. There's just a lot of good stuff online right now across the board. Not to take anything away from what we've done, but there's just a lot of great stuff out there to, I think the pluses we can take from this as far as the race, because I see on your page here, man, it's a youth game now. It's a youth game. I mean, you look at guys like, Mark Hershey came out of this tour. Sunweb's going to have to throw him more money, I think.
I bet you Aru wishes he wouldn't have dropped out of that UAE team.
I mean, I got to figure they got to send him to the Giro. They got to send him to the Giro.
He's Italian.
And he's Italian. And that's what they live for. And again, hey, maybe he was sick. Maybe he was under, maybe coming, the workload was just a little bit too much coming off the COVID. We don't know. I mean, I didn't read a whole lot of negativity about him in the press and stuff. So I would think maybe it was legit that he just.
Fair enough.
It is what it is.
All right, guys. If you got any pics or vids, send them in. Send them in to the Gretna Bill Show, and we'll make them part of our next broadcast. And again, thanks to our sponsors, LupineNorthAmerica.com, GUERCIOTTIUSA.com, Joss Zaring Studios, and Deluxx Bikes. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.